Shigure is actually going to be one of the best fire sweep lance users now because he is unparalleled in speed. There is Cordelia, there is a mosquito in my room. Hold on, guys. It's Alright, I got it. Where was I? Alright guys, anyways, let's start our unit analysis for these great new units. We're going to be looking at Hanoka, Shigure, both Kanas, and Kaze over here. I've looked at the art of all these units except Kana and Kaze. We'll see them in a bit. I'll give you my opinion on those in a bit, but let's get started with Hanoka here. So, based on yesterday's impressions video, I could probably already tell you guys that if one of these two units would get demoted, it would likely be Shigure or Kana. My bet is probably on Shigure. So, you know, before we talk into whether you should be summoning or not, check that out near the end of our analysis here on these builds and units and what you can do. But let's get started with Hanoka. So with Hanoka, she comes with a really unique bow that lets her do effective damage on armors. And the thing with that is if you've ever used Micaiah, you'll know that she has a really easy time killing every single red armor, killing most blue armors, especially with buffs, and usually missing kills on green armors due to weapon triangle advantage. Now, when it comes to Hanoka, I highly recommend if you're going to pull one copy that she ends up basically sitting on the bench for Arena Assault in most cases. Like for most people that don't plan to actually invest in her or get multiple merges and such, it's probably best to keep her on Arena Assault with her default weapon, because with the proper flyer team comp with like Hone Flyers and Goat Flyers, she should be capable of one-shotting literally every single armor in the game. If you just do a little bit of mathematics behind it, if you just pull a plus attack Hanoka, for instance, you can't count on getting that, but okay, let's assume you just use default Hanoka. 32 attack. This stat spread is pretty nice for doing this. 32 attack. The thing with flyers is you can really set them up to do immense amount of damage. So she has that 14 attack preferred weapon, which brings her up to 46. Give her Hone Flyers, it's 52, and just one Goat Flyers, which isn't too hard to expect. You're at 56 attack. Multiply that by the effective damage. She's out of the weapon triangle. This is unlike Micaiah. 56 attack, and you're adding 28 extra damage, which puts her at a significant 84 attack. Okay, there's not that many armor units in this whole game that have 84 bulk. Unless they're running like distant defense, maybe like double distant defense. Maybe if we're talking about like Zephyl here with like double distant defense. But if you do end up doing that, the thing is, those units need to literally retaliate and one-shot Hanoka if they do survive. So if they're running something else, maybe they're running like Steady Breath distant defense, adding 10 extra bulk. The thing is, you can likely do the mathematics in Arena Assault where you see the enemy team comp and know what to expect with Goat Flyers and Hone Flyers to use her reliably to counter those units. Of course, she is a counter to flyer units as well. So for those of you that don't plan on investing on her, Hanoka is really good at some point that you do pick her up and end up just using her default weapon. Of course, flyers in general are extremely powerful, and if you've used them before, you'll know they're one of my favorite team comps. If you've ever watched any of my videos or hang around with us on Twitch, you'll know for certain that I love using flyers in a lot of them. They're the greatest problem solvers of Fire Emblem Heroes, and most of the gameplay issues can be solved with 5-star base flyers. I've used mono green flyers before to beat infernal maps, and it's just crazy what sort of plays you come up using them. So Hanoka is only going to add to that list of crazy playmaking units. Talking without even mentioning things like beating out armors, she does have a few other roles, and the thing is, you can't really compare her to other flying archers because there's no such thing. So the thing is, she's the best user of a fire sweep bow flyer. She's the best user of a brave bow flying archer. So you can give her any of these builds and it will be fine because there's nothing to compare to. You can't really say like, you can't really compare her to, people might do this. You might compare her to like Bravelyn or something, but the thing is, you really shouldn't, because Bravelyn is on a horse, limited in terms of like mobility through things like trenches, trees, mountains, and Hanoka isn't. So that's a little bit different, with the 3 move and 2 move also to be considered, right guys? So you know, don't really think about that. Like, don't really try to consider her in that sort of aspect. Just consider that due to the mobility and playmaking things that you can do with like repositions, drawbacks that flyers can go over these sort of terrains that you really can't run into. It's just, you really can use any sort of bow on her and you'll totally be fine, especially considering, you know, home flyers and go flyers and such. If you plan to do some PvE content, I think Hanoka is actually going to be really one of the best users of that. I've been using a lot of Blade Mages with Desperation, and I know that colorless with Brave Bow could be a really good idea here. So if you plan to use her to complete a lot of PvE content, just one copy that ideally is like plus attack or plus speed, give her like a Brave Bow, and that's gonna be really good for pretty much all PvE content. But I could say the same about a lot of mages, blade flying mages as well. You could use, you know, plus speed Spring Camille, you can use plus speed Summercorn, you can use a plus speed Female Morgan, you can use a plus speed Halloween Noe, and basically accomplish the same thing. So she's not completely unique for PvE content, and you don't really need to spend, you know, all your orbs trying to go after her, but she's definitely a great unit. And if there's one unit that's going to make a significant difference to your team comps and really giving you a lot of success, Hanoka's going to be that unit. And at some point I'd be happy to throw her. I'd be happy to see her eventually show up in my barracks. Probably won't happen soon. Next up, we got Sugar Ray. He's a pretty boy, isn't he? I love how they gave him noontime as a special. All I can think about is Matt Mercer saying, "It's high noon." Except he's Sugar Ray now, and he's like singing it instead. Anyways, he's the first unit to come with the Wo Dao Lances. And if you're not familiar on what exactly a Wo Dao Lance is, it's basically the lance, or Wo Dao is basically the weapon that does 10 extra damage on your specials. And those 10 extra damage on your specials are what I consider the difference between burst damage and something else, which I would consider consistency. And consistency is what I consider the slaying edge weapons, the slaying weapons that reduce your cooldown special. So how those weapons interact with your special is one gives you 10 extra damage, which is true, like you can't reduce it anyway, and the other is just reducing the cooldown of your special. So to me, using those cooldown reductions is just being more consistent with your damage. It means your special happens more often, and you just kind of, you know, if you have more combat happen, let's say you have like maps with reinforcements, infernal maps for instance, chain challenge maps, something like that, slaying weapons that reduce cooldowns are very nice for this, where you're just pumping out more consistent damage. But the Wo Dao weapons do have a place, and their place here is the fact that you can break weapon triangles really well if you combine those weapons with Wrath. So the thing is, you get 20 true damage under 75% health, and you can literally break the triangle using like Luna or Aether, Wo Dao weapon, and Wrath. I know this because I've been using Mia a lot. I know, you know, Athena is a big example. If you ever play against Athena, you know, if she uses Moonbow and her Wo Dao, she does insanely high damage, even against your high defense units. The thing is, Sugar Ray can't use Wrath, so yeah, that kind of sucks. But his lance is going to be better on other units that could use Wrath to be able to do that sort of crazy burst damage that Wo Daos are capable. It's not to say that Wo Dao is necessarily bad on giving him. I would probably consider giving him a Slaying Lance instead of a Wo Dao Lance, honestly. Especially since he has that 37 speed, which is insane, by the way. 37 speed, 33 attack, absolutely bonkers. With a plus speed IV, he's going to have 40 speed, or even plus attack, 36, 37. Offensive stats is crazy high. His defensive stats are not even something to laugh at, like 27, 25 is really good as well. So even though that Blue Lance flying is, you know, that slot is very competitive, Sugar Ray is actually going to be one of the best Fire Sweep Lance users now, because he is unparalleled in speed. There is Cordelia, there is a mosquito in my room. Hold on, guys. Alright, I got it. Where was I? Sugar Ray cannot use Wrath because he's a flyer, but I was talking about the fact that he would be one of the best users now of Fire Sweep Lance, with Cordelia and Tana being the other two users. Tana is 5-star exclusive, and that makes her really hard to merge up and make her at the peak performance that she can be. It's also hard to target IVs. Now, I predict that Shigure likely will get demoted to 4-star just based on the quality of the units released in this banner. Kana here, the female version, could also be a candidate for demotion just because she doesn't really have anything special going for her. She has a couple of new skills, but they're not exactly game breaking or anything. And before we talk about her stats aren't really that amazing either, so she could potentially be a candidate for a demotion either. Between the two though, I think Shigure might actually be the one to get demoted. If he does, that means that Cordelia will have pretty significant competition for mergeability, availability. I know that Cordelia is a 3-star now, but Shigure coming at 4-star should, you know, still be good projects for people to have. And, you know, he has some great stat spread, guys, so he's going to be a really, like, he's going to be a monster for a lot of people to use as a player phase flyer. Brave Lance with quad builds for Sweep Lance with, you know, plus speed IVs, just making sure you get those doubles, hit run, Gale Forces, all those shenanigans. He's going to be really good at that. If you don't want to do that, a Slaying Lance build is also really good on him just because his defensive stats isn't really that bad and he's got great speed to make sure that he charges his specials really fast. So honestly, I'm pretty excited to try to use Shigure. If he ends up going to 4-star, I'm going to be pretty happy about that. He's also got darting stance, but high speed units generally don't want to be enemy phase, guys, so you're going to want to definitely change that out at some point. Be sure to use something like Fury. I think Fury is going to be really good on him. This encounter might also be really good on him, but mostly Fury, just because he really could appreciate every single stat being upgraded. Just 28 res, 30 defense, 40 speed, 36 attack. It's just, and neutral is just insane. Like, he's going to be really a really good unit. So let's look at the next thing up. Yeah, especially if you combine it with Desperation, like, he wouldn't even need really much more. Alright, next up is Kana here, the female version. As you guys know from my impressions, I'm not a huge fan of Kana. I totally missed using her in my Fire Emblem Fates run. Her stat spread kind of reminds me of female Corrin, actually, like the blue dragon, but this one is green, so there's a little bit of variety there. The thing with female Kana, though, is she's going to be a really good enemy phase unit, and she could also play player phase just because her speed is pretty decent. She's got great bulk, a lot better res than female Corrin did, and her attack is similar, kind of on the lower end to female Corrin, but since she has that added BST, that the second generation of units have, it does mean that she is going to be in a good spot. So just her default kit is actually pretty decent, all things considered. You know, Fierce Stance and Water Breath giving you so much extra stats on enemy phase. But due to her speed being what it is, you could actually use her on player phase, which is something I highly appreciate because there isn't a lot of dragons that play on the player phase. You really don't have that many. You'd have to do like a plus speed. No, her female Corrin's actually a pretty good candidate on player phase, but she's held back by her really, you know, low attack. And then you have female Grima that also plays on player phase. So having another player phase option like this is definitely appreciated, just because the green one being Faye and Myrrh being enemy phase for the most part, and Faye having to be like plus speed with a really wonky build that way also makes that a lot different. You're gonna run like most standard dragon builds here. She could run the Steady Breath builds, she could run the Warding Breath builds, she could run Wind Sweep builds, she can run Fury builds. I think Hannah's just gonna be really flexible as a unit. So, you know, just pretty much use the same dragon builds you've used with other ones, and you could paste it onto here. I think like a Steady Breath, Wind Sweep, like Phantom Speed build could be really powerful here, especially if you give her something like Dark Breath. Even keeping Water Breath in that build might just be fine. You probably wouldn't even need to change that, considering all things. You'd be really tanky in enemy phase. Steady Breath, Wind Sweep, or like Warding Breath, Wind Sweep. There's some really cool things you could do here with female Kana. So yeah, definitely experiment here and see what works best for you, or what resources you have if you do end up using Kana at some point, the female one. Okay, here's male Kana. Voiced by a girl, by the way. I mean, I'm not surprised. I mean, how does a boy, like a man, imitate a little boy? I think your vocal cords kind of increase as you get older, so it's gonna be pretty hard to imitate a little boy. But anyways, it's gonna be a girl. It's like Ash Ketchum from Pokemon, right? Like the girl a girl voices Ash, so in case you didn't know. Similar stat spread to female Canna, but the problem is we do know that male Canna has been confirmed by the game that he is indeed a Grand Hero Battle unit, and that means we're going to have limited copies of him, probably only 3 for the time being. Also, from what we know, he does come with Brazen Defense Resistance. Yes, Brazen Defense Resistance, a skill that came on Harden, is now available on this Grand Hero Battle unit, and Fortified Dragons, which was previously on Ninian. So really crazy fodder skills. He has great fodder, so that's going to be really useful for building up your other units, and I definitely tend to do that myself for foddering him off to other units. His stat spread is really similar to female Canna, with him having 1 less speed, 1 more attack, 2 less defense, 3 more res. The thing is, though, he doesn't have the advantage of IVs that female Canna has, and of course he has less merge ability in the long term because we don't know how often we'd get these reruns. Also, considering his fodder options, there's not going to be that many merges available to him because you'd likely want to take advantage of more Brazen Defense res on your other units or Fortified Dragons on your Dragon team comps that may have more merges than him. So unfortunately, yeah, sorry Canna, male Canna that is, but at least it's pretty cute, right? Alright, last up we have Kaze. Very interesting art from Kaze here. He looks very feminine. I don't really remember him being that feminine. But anyways, just looking at the initial stat spreads for Kaze, it looks like he does have a very similar stat spread to Felicia, or even what I would consider like a reverse of Saizo. If you really look at his stat spread, he's got like lowish attack, really high speed, one really high defensive stat, but one really low defensive stat. So you got that really high res, but low defense, high speed, low attack. But this means that he's kind of like Felicia, I guess, or like Halloween Sakura. The problem is I can't really tell whether this guy will have... Right now we don't really know whether he's going to be showing up on a banner, whether he's a free unit, whether he's going to have IVs or not. So it's really hard for me to gauge, you know, what sort of long-term potential Kaze will have. I'm just going to assume that he's going to be a free unit because we know that he comes with only Slaying Dagger being the most... He comes with the Slaying Dagger, guys. The same weapon that basically Takumi had, the Kagome Mochi. I believe it's called Barb Shuriken, though, but basically reduces the cooldown of your special spell one. I really like to get my hands on that one, on that dagger, so I could use it on other units. Even Kaze himself probably wouldn't be a bad user of it himself, using something like Iceberg or Glacies. You really could pump out some really good damage. He comes with Attack Smoke and Poison Strike, though, and those skills are... they're not like, oh my god, we must put him on a banner. Like, it doesn't scream, you know, put him on a banner to me. So we'll see where he ends up being, but at the time I can't really give you guys a good impression of what long-term viability you could get out of Kaze. I guess for some people, hopefully he ends up on a banner so you can work with IVs and merges, but maybe for others, we don't really know what we can expect with that banner, so it could blindside us. And make sure you're saving orbs if you truly do care about Kaze until we truly know where he's going to end up being. His build is going to be, you know, pretty standard, I'd say. You know, Iceberg, you could run Desperation if you wanted to player phase, but you could also run Quick Riposte if you wanted to enemy phase. Distant Defense would really help him out on enemy phase to pump out even more damage through Iceberg. You could even run Quick Impulse and get some really good shenanigans with Glacies. You could have Infantry Pulse users on the team because of his low HP and pump out some really good Glacies damage that way, just using his default weapon, Barb Shuriken, which reduces his cooldown. There's some really cool builds you could definitely do with Kaze here, and I think he's going to bring a lot to the table. The thing is, if you compare him to Felicia, Felicia does have Felicia's plate, and that is definitely unique and probably more useful than Kaze himself. If Kaze does not have merge availability or IVs, then Felicia will outperform him, unfortunately. He will just end up being Barb Shuriken fodder. So I think a lot of these units are really interesting overall, and you know, I wish you luck in getting them in the future. Getting them right away though, guys, you know, I'm not a big fan of riding hype trains and summoning right away. So on that note, summoning. Everyone's favorite part. If you don't understand how mathematics in Fire Emblem works, my first and most important piece of advice for you is do educate yourself on what will happen if you click that summon button, okay? Do not go into a summoning session with 20 orbs and think that you will be lucky and get everything you want. Because the realistic scenario of that is you will likely not get what you want and you will end up being disappointed. In some cases, you may actually end up opening your wallet and spending money out of frustration, because that's what gachas do. They do end up trying to trap you into these sort of things. So you have to set your expectations correctly. Generally, with the Golden Week coming up, legendary banners coming up every month, having better value on other units, these units going to be added to the permanent summoning pool. They will pity break you in the future. As an overall general statement, guys, I generally recommend not spending orbs on any banner where the units end up in the permanent pool, because in the future, when we have seasonal banners which have limited units, usually limited units are very strong. Look at Level Balance Hector, look at Winter Tharja, and if you end up rolling for these units, greens, reds, these units here, these three that you see at this time, including Hanoka, they will end up showing up as pity breakers in the future. And I have already read all the comments. I have read all the statements where people are already complaining about getting a pity breaker male Grima. Yes, the unit that you guys are all hyped about a couple months ago, yes, there is complaints that he ends up as a pity breaker. That is ridiculous, okay? If you're the type of person that's going to complain about a pity breaker months from now, it means you shouldn't be rolling on these banners at all, and strictly save your orbs and spend them on seasonal banners where you can indeed just get pity broken by those units that in general may frustrate you, okay? So save your orbs is my general statement. Only spend on those limited exclusive banners where we don't know when and with, you know, how long till they come back, with there being more juicy things showing up. Hanoka's great here, guys, but if you end up, you know, summoning on Hanoka during the colorless seasonals, you might end up seeing a Hanoka, okay? And you'll be probably pleasantly surprised. You'll be happy. That's in the future. Patience pays off. I've gotten so many pity breaks with that. But if you decide to summon on the banner, I might as well show you the odds, right? Here's how it works. Canna. In the green pool, green orbs. Green orbs are indeed the highest percentage chance of getting a 5-star focus unit, because there are the least amount of green units in the green pool. There's also the least amount of 5-star units in the green pool. Therefore, you have the highest odds of getting a 5-star green focus out of it. It's not specific to Canna, it's specific to any 5-star green focus. The fact that there's only 3 5-star focuses on this banner results in there being a good chance of getting these units within a, you know, decent amount of orbs. So 3.46% chance to get a free Canna. This means that about 1 in 32, 1 in 32, 1 in 31 people will get a free Canna on their free summon. Yeah, that could be you. Don't try to count on it though. Median 81 orbs. This means that every second person will spend about 81 orbs sniping greens to get Canna. Average is 109 orbs. Most people will spend about 109 orbs to get a Canna, but there will be people that spend 50 orbs for Canna. There will be people that spend 150 orbs that get Canna. There are a few people that spend 241 orbs. Those are 1 in 10 people that spend 241 orbs for a Canna. Yeah, that's pretty significant. If you think about it, that is a couple $100 in buying orbs that you could get just a Canna, okay? Next up, we have Sugar Ray. This is unfortunately the lowest chance on this banner to pull this unit, because the blue pool is fairly saturated. So you have a 2.93% chance. That means there's about 1 in 36 or so people that get Sugar Ray for free. Median is 94 orbs. 1 in 2 people do get a Sugar Ray within 94 orbs, and 127 orbs being on average. Again, you may be below this number, you may be above this number. Don't think that just because you took you 60 orbs to get male Grima on a couple banners back that you're also going to spend 60 orbs here on Sugar Ray. That is a trap, and that is the quickest way to run out of orbs and be frustrated with your summoning results. Again, 90th percentile. This means 1 in 10 people spend 279 orbs to summon for Sugar Ray. Again, summoning for Sugar Ray right now, not truly recommended, just because I actually think that he may get demoted down to that 4-star pool. And you could just spend feathers, which is a less lucrative resource right now because you can just farm them up through Grand Hero battles. Finally, we have Hanoka here. She's in between both Canna and Shigure. 3.4% chance to pull. Again, it's going to be about 1 in 36, 1 in 35, something about that odd. 90 orbs for the median, 119 for the average, 261 orbs for the 1 in 10 people that are unlucky. And unfortunately, that could be you, so be very careful. Overall though, guys, I wish you luck, and hopefully you do get these units sometime in the future. Do remember, even if you pull these units, some of them may end up just on the bench because you may just end up going back to your plus 10 Ninos, plus 10 Noes, plus 10 Adotikis, plus 10 Ravens. Units you've already built up, they're going to still be more powerful than these units you see here. So try to avoid the hype, save your orbs, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.